Undo, no matter how far, we know this world is ours. No matter how far, we know this world is ours. Bringing African nations together in unity starts with you and me. Bringing African nations together in unity. African brothers and sisters come together and reform. Our view is no longer cloudy because we always weather the storm. Afro's a label that they try to make negative, but it's really a word that leads back to our heritage. The ancient name of Africa was Alkebulan. To hide our history, the name's been changed many times. Mother of mankind, garden of Eden, land of the blacks. All leads back to melanin, and that is a fact. They try to change the map, but it just ain't happening. Bunch of Mario Bros, they just always capping. Africa is the hub, the center of earth. These colonizers sure know what it's worth. No coincidence why they colonize from birth. I wanna hear equality no more. I want my equity, I want my wealth, my land. Anything that you done for me without my permission took all my ancestors built for me. They try to keep us divided because that's the only way they can conquer. While black and brown stay united, the future looks somber. We add the flavor and season into every tradition. See how TV needs color, cause without it there's no high definition. How do you take everything from our culture? You claim we are the vultures.
All right, welcome everyone to our broadcast today. We're excited that you have joined us, and for those of you who are actively joining us, welcome. I want to also give a shout out to our son Daniel for the musical track that you're hearing at the beginning of our broadcast. If you want to hear more of his songs and selections on his album, you go to D underscore SP3NC. I think on Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, um, TikTok. So you can hear more of the music that he has written and created. All right. Welcome, everyone. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe, share the video. And of course, if you like the video, give us a thumbs up. We would appreciate it. So today we are basically going to do part two of what we started out on last week, are Blacks Afro-Asiatic. And we were talking about what that has meant, I should say, over the years. Many people, because of the establishment or development of the so-called Middle East, um, has come up with this Afro-Asiatic connection with the continent of Asia. And we were showing on last week in the video how the original or the earliest or ancient people, there was a nation of people, if they didn't have their African melanin, their blackness, uh, they would be considered Asians. But they are a people that are from the continent of Africa. And through migration, we are seeing how other nations come out of, a ancient nation, and the mixing of the people coming together, and the Afro-Asian look or the Afro-Asiatic people really is, in reality, are just African. Um, and we will show you some of that as the broadcast continues today, as it relates to the definitions and things of this nature. So today, I just want to cut down on the video time. For some people, it is an overload of information. So we're just going to kind of deal with Eastern Africa today, and then we will come back and revisit it on a different time. I think next week we'll go West Africa. And so We want to get into it. We don't want to hold you long. So let's get started.
Two, what was the migratory route of other major African groups? East Africa. We start with East Africans. We already saw how the earliest ancestors of the Nile Valley people were from the Horn of Africa and the Great Lakes region. This is, let's remember, well supported by linguistics, archaeology, and genetics as we have seen earlier. Remember what the study by A. Stevanovich et al. 2004 said. Our results suggest that the Ghana population has conserved the trace of an ancestral genetic structure from an ancestral East African population, characterized by a high M1 haplogroup frequency. The current structure of the Egyptian population may be the result of further influence of neighboring populations on this ancestral population. Notice how they don't mention anything about an ancestral Eurasian population, because their genetic influence is from a much later period. Thus, the Kemites' earliest ancestors were from East Africa, then those got mixed with African populations from the Green Sahara, then much later Eurasians, and that is how we got the modern Egyptians. And so the implication is quite straightforward here. The Nile Valley people and the people of East Africa share a common ancestor, since in most migrations, it is not everyone who leaves the homeland. Many stay behind and continue doing their own thing. This thus implies that they are part of the same culture, and this most serious anthropologists agree with. Even at the 1974 UNESCO Cairo Symposium on the Peopling of Ancient Egypt, Western and Arab scholars who refused to recognize that the ancient Egyptian civilization was of Black African origin admitted at least that the culture of ancient Egyptians was most similar to that of Africans further south. Here is what one participant said in the symposium. Professor Leclan began by stressing the African character of Egyptian civilization, but it is necessary to distinguish clearly, as Professor Vercouter had done, between race and culture. See, they can't deny the African nature of Kemet because the evidence for cultural ties is overwhelming, as you will see in the later parts of this series that will focus on that very.
I just want to comment here. I don't know if you heard, but it was the entire board of Europeans that was making these determinations. And until the two Africans or the two melanated men who had the information and the education and the research to prove that the Egyptians were of African origin, not of European or Asian origin as they would like to have kept the narrative. This is the problem that we have in research is undoing what they've done in order to understand and find out the information deep beneath the topsoil, which means one has to incorporate the continent of Africa and the people of Africa in order to discover or uncover this type of information. And they will not give it to you. They are going to give you what they desire to give you. We as a melanated people have always had to uncover or remove the topsoil that they always lay over everything. That is their writing of history, their documentation. Because Africans of the ancient times, not a lot of things were written. A lot of things were passed down through oral through, tradition, cultural practices. and they were just passed down. But the European came along and started putting pen to paper, and because they were doing that, and I'm not saying there weren't any African documentation, but as it relates to an overall canvas of writings, there was very few. But the Europeans came along and they started documenting things the way they wanted to document it. And after they began their colonization and conquering uh, black nations, they began to rewrite history in the way that they want to. So it's very hard sometimes to get to the facts. I don't want to use the word truth because that word has played out in the fact that everybody has a truth, but the facts. And so I just wanted to comment about Egypt is definitely from its inception and its beginnings a melanated black African people. And we cannot, forget that. And we cannot let the white faces that we see there today uh, skew our view of Egypt or Kemet. Okay, let's continue.
Every aspect of this issue. Many people in the Horn of Africa, if you did not know, speak languages that are of the Afro-Asiatic language family, the family of ancient Egyptian and ancient Nubian languages. Can we say the same of Asia? Except for Semitic, which is but one branch that found itself in Asia, East Africa has two branches of that language family. These are Cushitic and Omotic. So this means they indeed shared common ancestors. If you challenge this obvious link, then you should allow us to challenge too the idea that Greeks and Romans were descended from the Naya people and the Caucasus. And therefore we could say that Greece is not really Caucasian and European culture, since it had so much Egyptian influence. And also because we can't find stone temples in the steppes of Russia and the Caucasus, our argument is therefore solid. Hence we can say that the ancient Greeks were not related to other Europeans. See, two can play this game. Anyhow, when you look at the DNA of East Africans like the Banyarwanda from Rwanda or the Baganda from Uganda, they do show a mixed ancestry between Nilotic Sudanese, Bantu, and Twa Pygmy peoples. Like the Tutsi people, for instance, who have a significant amount of genetic ancestry from Afro-Asiatic peoples of the Sudan. Confer this study you can see on the screen, link in the description, of course. And when you go to Kenya, you even find groups that are straight up Nilotics, like the Kalenjin, Samburu, Luo, Turkana, and the very famous Maasai people. With a high frequency of Y haplogroup E3b1, they are directly related to the Kushites and Kemites. They are even said to be descendants of the Nilo-Saharan people. And who are the ancestors of the Kushites and the Kemites? Nilo-Saharan people. The Green Sahara and the Horn of Africa links are pretty much confirmed. And when you remember the study of Sonia Zakrzyewski 2000 stating that the Kemites and Kushites had Nilotic body plans, then this link is all the more strengthened. Now, on to the next group, West Africa. Here is where many like to say that there
Okay, we it's still playing. Okay, all right. We are going to stop there and not move to West Africa just yet because we're trying to make sure we maybe cut this down to some bite-sized pieces. As you notice that they gave some Nilotic people who are in Kenya, and I had a chance to actually, um, I guess, engage in the Maasai tribe while I was there. I've been there a couple of times and had a great experience in watching cultural practices and being a part of. certain traditions that they do, and even went through a naming ceremony. So these things, you get a chance when you actually get what they call boots on the ground. You can experience a lot more and kind of see things in person that help you to understand um, some realities. Because when you only live here in America, or only live in Europe or what have you, you only see the melanated people that are around you. Yes, you have knowledge that South America exists, Africa exists, Jamaica, all these places, but you haven't actually been there personally to be around, to hear their voices, to hear their language, to see what they do and how they do things, and the differences. This is so very important in not only research but verifying, validating. You know, so much here in this country is about um, Israel, Palestine, and even the black people of this nation are, really trying to connect themselves to Israel rather than connect themselves to Africa. And so, with doing so, we have to really do some research to make sure that what we are connecting to is accurate. And so, if it's accurate, then it's fine. Uh, do you see, or hopefully you see the um, information before you concerning Israel, or what had the land that has been called Israel? Okay. It says before 1948, the region that is now Israel was known as Palestine and was under British rule. Remember, I talked about colonization? The British mandate for Palestine lasted from 1920 to 1948. Okay, we have to understand that the Europeans came in and disrupted many things. Okay, after the Ottoman Empire 400-year rule ended in 1918 following World War I, the League of Nations approved the British Mandate in 1922, which aimed to establish a Jewish homeland while also protecting the rights of the Arab majority. However, Arabs opposed the Balfour Declaration, which favored the establishment of a Jewish nation home, fearing it would mean their subjugation, which we know is a problematic situation there in the land. Now, let's see. I want to share some more information with you. And we're going to go back to sharing this information. Palestine. You'll need to unlock your iPhone. Palestine is geographically part of Africa. Okay? It's not showing? Okay. All right. Palestine is geographically part of Africa, along with Lebanon and the coast of Syria, the Arabian Plate, which includes Palestine, is a breakaway part of the African plate. See, this is confirmation of what we talked about when we talked about the fact that Pangea, the breaking apart of the land, that the land was once one connected piece, and through these plates shifting under the earth, uh, these continents began to break apart. But originally, these areas were African, but through much mixing of Asians and Europeans, we now see more what we call white skinned individuals in these areas. It says, additionally, a study found that 15% of Palestinians tested have maternal DNA haplogroup that originate in sub-Saharan Africa, which suggests female migration from Eastern Africa into the region in recent millennia. See, that is the information that many times we don't get. We don't get that information readily. And because we don't get it readily, we just believe what is put on television. We believe what is advertised and marketed, and who the people are that are today represented in those areas. But the reality is that entire area was Africa, but they have claimed it through colonization and all of these different things as Middle East. And there was a huge attempt to also claim Egypt and bring it into the Middle East so that all of the ancient knowledge could come under said group, Europeans, that they can claim the ancient knowledge of the world. But due to those uh, individuals that challenged the European board there about Egypt, we were able to get the recognition, but it's not broadcast on a large basis. You have to do the research, but you do hear that the original Egyptians were black. You kind of, that's a thing that you normally hear, but you don't get the full story unless you do the research. They don't want to give the credit to where credit is due. And so there's another group that I was around, the Bantu group in Eastern Africa. They're also in Western, Central, and Southern Africa, but I was actually able to be around them. And let's look at some information on Bantu. Let's see. Okay, what does Bantu mean? In anthropology, the term was used to refer to people that spoke these languages. Abantu or Bantu, as it was used by colonists. Okay, that's key because we are going to find out that this is a name that they branded over what it really truly means. Is the Zulu word for people. Okay, meaning in the Zulu language, who Zulu are what what we know as Bantu people, but each Bantu group has their own language and their own tongue. And I can attest because I've been there and I've heard it and I've talked to different ones that are part of the Bantu group of people, but they have different tribes and nations among that Bantu title. It is the plural of the word umuntu, meaning persons, and is based on the stem mtu, plus the plural prefix Abba. So we see here, we have to understand that even in some of the African words that now exist, we see the hand of the colonizer trying to brand and explain who these people are. The reality is we need to talk to them to see who they are and not rely on what they are saying to us and what they are communicating to us. I was actually able to go and confirm for myself uh, who some of the Bantu people are and what are their nations and their tribes. Uh, One more thing I want to share before we go about the Bantu. I think it's this one. Nope, that was the same one. Let me go back. Here we go. Bantu. Bantu, relating to or denoting a group of Niger Congo languages spoken in Central and Southern Africa, including Swahili, Xhosa, and Zulu. It includes a lot more than that. That is what we have to understand. These may be some of the most well known tongues among the Bantu people, Swahili being probably uh, the largest language spoken among them, and of course Zulu because of the uh, Shaka Zulu time period. Everybody is aware of Shaka Zulu, so that language probably gets the next, I guess, most attention as far as the Bantu languages. But there are many what is known as tribes or nations, many Bantu tongues, many Bantu languages. Okay. Um, a group of Niger Congo languages spoken in Central and Southern Africa, including those languages. Now, what really got me was this thing right here on number 2 that says offensive. Now, you see the alert there. Why is this offensive? Because this is what happens when the Europeans are the ones that's kind of the ones writing everything and putting everything in place. Let's see what is offensive here. Is there anything offensive? A member of an indigenous people of Central and Southern Africa that speak a Bantu language. Huh. How is that offensive? That right there speaks volumes about those who are writing these definitions and giving us all the history and knowledge. There's much more that needs to be discovered and an undertaking that needs to happen. And we have to go further. We have to go deeper into our research and our knowledge so that we can know what is what. It's a lot to unpack, and just relying on certain information and not researching and verifying and validating those things can leave you completely lost in the matrix. you know, uh, I would just be depending on these definitions had I not gone there for myself, had I not listened and heard what the people were saying, had I not interviewed people. It is important that people who do have the opportunity to go and put boots on the ground come back and share what they have discovered and what they have found out in their research. And I'm telling you, they have put us against one another. Those who are not living and born on the continent, there is an agenda there to separate us, to make us feel that we are a different kind of black. We are a different kind of melanated. There's been so much mixing going on in the world. A lot of enslaved ancestors that came over, and I told you the percentage last time, like 5 or 6% that ended up in the United States. A lot of European have mixed within our blood. And so because we get a slightly different look because of that mixing, doesn't mean that our original DNA doesn't come from the continent of Africa. There's a lot of renaming. America wasn't America. Africa wasn't Africa. All these places. And then we have people who are claiming, like, I'm Native American. Do you know what you're saying? What was it before the Europeans came? Was it America? I don't think so. So if you're native something else, not Native American. That's just a title you're going by, just like going by African. This thing is so deep that it requires a lot of time to get down to the bottom of everything. Yes. Are you getting facts? You're getting facts that are layered. As you discover one layer of facts, you have to go to the next layer of facts. Because until you can get to the source or the bottom, you have to continue to research and continue to study. And so I hope just hearing about East Africa and the migration, how it started out and it moved into what we know as the Nile Valley area to Egypt. And we're going to see how it migrates from that area over to West Africa. Because a lot of people don't believe the West Africans have anything to do with Kemet. But we're going to find out. Join us next week as we talk about West Africa. And if you are not a subscriber, please subscribe. If this video was a good source of information for you, hit the like button, share it. And until next time, we will see you later. Have a great rest of your day.